Most people think Christmas lasts one day. In the Middle Ages, it lasted 12. Work stopped. Rules bent. Food disappeared by the barrel. Kings obeyed peasants. Children ruled adults. And order was deliberately turned upside down. This is what the 12 days of Christmas really looked like, before they were turned into a song. Most of us know the 12 days of Christmas, but in the Middle Ages, the holiday was far louder, longer, and messier. Sure, there were dancers and performers, but the partridge ended up roasted on the king's table, swimming in gravy alongside swans, and the gold rings were hidden inside Christmas pudding. When Christmas Day arrived, medieval people set their work aside, wrapped their tools in holly and ivy, and celebrated non-stop for 12 days, all the way to Epiphany on January 6th. With the Yule log crackling in the hearth, people feasted, played games, attended church, drank endless wassail, and leaned into a kind of joyful mischief. Everything built toward Twelfth Night, the wildest celebration of the year. So hang the greenery, warm the wine, and cut the mince pie, we're stepping into the 12 days of medieval Christmas. Advent. Advent began on the fourth Sunday before Christmas, sometime between November 27th and December 3rd, and lasted until Christmas Day. The word comes from adventus, meaning arrival, and it marked the wait for Christ's birth. As early as 567, church leaders ordered monks to fast every day in December. By the Middle Ages, most Christians followed the fast. That meant no meat, cheese, or eggs. Peasants barely ate meat anyway, while the wealthy switched to fish, but everyone was also expected to abstain from sex. The strict mood of restraint only made the Christmas feast feel more explosive once it finally arrived. Preparations picked up on December 21st, the feast day of St. Thomas the Apostle. Because he was believed to have traveled as far as India, the poor went door to door asking neighbors for help with their Christmas meals. The usual gift was a simple bowl of flour. Christmas Eve. On December 24th, homes and churches were dressed in whatever greenery survived winter, mostly holly and ivy, along with bay, rosemary, pine, and other evergreens. Beyond looking festive, these plants filled the house with rich, fresh scents. Northern Europeans had decorated with holly long before Christianity, back when pagans celebrated Yule. Christians later reinterpreted holly as Christ's crown of thorns, with red berries symbolizing drops of blood. Ivy stood for God's gift, and because holly was seen as male and ivy as female, a house full of ivy hinted that the woman was in charge. Mistletoe, once used by Druids in fertility rituals, remained controversial. Many churches banned it, but ordinary people still kissed beneath it for luck. One popular decoration was the kissing bough, two wooden hoops wrapped in greenery, with an apple or pomander in the center and mistletoe hanging below. Each kiss earned the man a berry, and once the berries were gone, the kissing stopped. Single women had their own rituals. Some wrapped 3 smooth holly leaves in a cloth and slept with them under their pillow, hoping to dream of a future husband. Bringing greenery inside on Christmas Eve was lucky, but doing it earlier was considered bad luck, something medieval folks would find shocking given how early decorations appear today. Another ancient tradition was the Yule log. Men cut down a massive tree and hauled it into the hall, where it burned for all 12 days, lighting and warming the heart of the Christmas season. During Christmastide, everyone was expected to stop working entirely. In a farming society, winter naturally slowed life down. The harvest was already stored, livestock had been slaughtered, and the fields lay dormant until spring. With fewer daylight hours, tasks like building, minting, and skilled crafts largely paused. Still, some duties couldn't wait. Breeding animals needed care, meals had to be cooked and cleaned up, and children still required attention. Those responsibilities usually fell to the women of the household, who rarely enjoyed the same freedom as the men. Even so, they found ways to delay certain chores. Spinning wheels were wrapped in Christmas greenery, making them unusable and giving women a break from spinning until January 6th. After a long day of preparation, everyone changed into their best clothes and headed to church for midnight mass. This service marked Christ's birth, believed to have taken place at midnight in a manger. Flickering candles and ringing bells officially launched the 12 days of Christmas. Christmas Day, December 25th. After a short rest, people returned to church for dawn mass, which arrived a little later thanks to the short winter days. Once services ended, the real celebration began. The morning opened with an enormous breakfast feast. Plum porridge, a rich meat broth with dried fruit, spices, and wine, was served first. Mince pies, already popular in England since Crusaders brought the recipe back from the Middle East in the 1000s, followed soon after. Their spices and dried fruits were costly imports, making them prized treats saved for Christmas. That's why those flavors still feel so tied to the season today. Over time, mince pie evolved into plum pudding. The pudding used similar ingredients but was boiled in a cloth instead of baked. Tradition required each family member to stir it from east to west, honoring the Magi's journey. It typically contained 13 ingredients, symbolizing Jesus and the 12 apostles, including lamb suet to recall the shepherds. Small objects were mixed in, a coin for wealth, a ring for marriage, and a thimble for luck. The pudding was soaked in brandy, topped with holly, and set aflame before serving. Plum pudding remains a Christmas staple in the UK, though it's usually meat-free today. Among the wealthy, the showpiece of the feast was a boar's head, dressed with holly and served with mustard. This tradition dates back to the 1100s under King Henry II. A special carol was sung as it was carried into the hall, thrilling the crowd. The rich also enjoyed venison, swan, peacock, turkey, and other game, along with sweets like marzipan and sugar plate made from expensive imported sugar. For common people, meat was rare, but Christmas was the one time they splurged, usually on a humble but cherished goose. Gingerbread was another Christmas favorite across Europe. These spiced biscuits were often painted and hung in windows as decorations. The feast stretched on for hours. As mead, ale, and wine flowed, the gathering turned loud and unruly. Borrowing from the spirit of the Roman Saturnalia, one peasant was chosen as the lord of misrule. During the holidays, he could give orders to his social superiors. He organized games, encouraged mischief, and kept the energy high. If things grew quiet, he might demand someone perform a silly stunt, like hopping on one foot or speaking backward. For medieval people, this temporary reversal of social order was pure joy. Henry VII embraced the chaos and kept both a lord of misrule and an abbot of unreason at court. His granddaughter, Elizabeth I, felt the disorder went too far and eventually outlawed the custom. After hours of heavy eating and drinking, everyone made their way, slowly, back to church for one final mass to close out Christmas Day. If all this talk of medieval partying has you thinking about a gift for the history lover in your life, I've added new designs to my merch shop. One features the women who spent Christmas at Henry VIII's side, his 6 wives, Catherine of Aragon, and Boleyn, Jane Seymour, and of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. The design includes their birth dates, reigns, deaths, and the familiar rhyme that sums up their fates: divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. I've also added a new layout featuring England's 8 queens regnant, along with several other new designs. Hopefully, you'll find something perfect for yourself or as a holiday gift. These designs are available on t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, mugs, stickers, and more. You can find everything through the link in the description. Use the promo code HISTORY10 before December 10th to get 10% off and help support the channel. Now, back to the past. December 26th, Feast of St. Stephen, second day of Christmas. According to the Book of Acts, Stephen was a deacon in the early Christian church in Jerusalem, living just a generation after Christ. He was known for caring for the poor, which eventually brought him into conflict with Jewish authorities. He was stoned to death and became Christianity's first martyr. Today, He's best remembered through the carol Good King Wenceslas, which opens on the feast of Stephen. The song tells of King Wenceslas and his servant braving harsh winter weather to bring aid to a poor man. Wenceslas I ruled Bohemia from 921 to 935 and met a violent end when his younger brother betrayed and killed him. He later became the patron saint of what is now the Czech Republic. In the Middle Ages, December 26th was devoted to charity. Leftovers from wealthy households, known as dole, were distributed to the poor, landlords hosted feasts for their tenants, and church alms boxes were opened and shared. This practice likely gave rise to Boxing Day in the UK, though today it's better known for shopping. December 27th, Feast of St. John, third day of Christmas. John the Evangelist was said to have proven his faith by drinking poisoned wine, which God rendered harmless. Medieval Christians marked this miracle by drinking generously in his honor. On the European continent, wine was common and affordable. In England, however, only the wealthy could import it, so most people celebrated with ale or lamb's wool, a warm drink made by adding spices and apples to beer. December 28th, Childermass, fourth day of Christmas. Childermass commemorated the massacre of the Holy Innocents. According to the Gospel of Matthew, when King Herod learned that a prophesied king of the Jews had been born, he ordered the slaughter of all male children under 2 in Bethlehem. Joseph, warned in a dream, fled with Mary and Jesus to Egypt, saving the Messiah but not the other children. The haunting Coventry carol, sung from the perspective of a mother mourning her child, would have resonated deeply with medieval families who often lost children to illness. On this day, children briefly ruled the adults. Schoolboys locked their masters out until promises of lighter punishment or more holidays were made. In churches, a choir boy was chosen as a boy bishop, dressed in fine robes to lead services and preach. Successful boy bishops were rewarded with gifts or money. While modern Christmas gift-giving didn't take shape until the Victorian era, one day of power and mischief may have been enough. In medieval England and France, Childermass was considered unlucky for starting new projects. In Spain, Latin America, and the Philippines, December 28th remains a day for pranks, much like April Fool's Day. Tricksters are called inocentadas, and their victims are expected to laugh it off. After all, no sin could possibly have been committed. Next part, reworked. Every year in Spain, locals pull on military uniforms and launch a massive food fight. December 29th marked the Feast of St. Thomas Becket, the 5th day of Christmas. Becket was the son of a London merchant who rose to become a close advisor to King Henry II. When he was appointed Archbishop of Canterbury, he soon clashed with the king over the limits of royal and church authority. On December 29, 1170, Henry allegedly snapped, "Who will rid me of this troublesome priest?" Four loyal knights took that as a command, stormed the cathedral, and brutally killed Becket, slicing off the top of his head. He was quickly declared a saint, and intense devotion grew around his remains, which were placed in a lavish, jewel-covered shrine. His feast day was marked, like so many others, with another mass followed by yet another enormous meal. December 30th, 6th day of Christmas. Not every day of Christmastide honored a saint. Some were simply rare breaks meant for rest and enjoyment. One tradition shared by rich and poor alike was wassailing. A large wooden bowl was filled with hot ale or cider, sugar, spices, apples, and a crust of bread resting at the bottom. The bowl was first offered to the most important person in the household, who would cry, "Wassail." An Anglo-Saxon wish for good health, take a drink, and pass it along. Groups then carried the bowl from house to house, trading sips for food. As they went, they sang. Carols like "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" and "Here We Come a Wassailing" trace their roots back to this tradition. Once the bowl was empty, the alcohol-soaked bread was given to the senior guest. This custom likely inspired modern toasts and speeches. Not everyone approved. When the Puritans took power in England in 1649, they banned Christmas outright. Wassailers were arrested, and soldiers forced shops to stay open on December 25th. The deep resentment over losing the 12-day holiday helped ensure the Puritan regime didn't last long. Caroling returned in the Victorian era, but communal drinking never fully came back, though it may have influenced Halloween trick-or-treating. December 31st, New Year's Eve, 7th day of Christmas. This day was devoted to games, sports, and hunting. While nobles played year-round, Christmas brought extra energy. Many familiar games, like Blind Man's Bluff, Tag, and Hide-and-Seek, began as medieval Christmas pastimes. Parlor games peaked during the Victorian era, especially at Christmas, but faded in the 20th century as families gathered around televisions instead. To keep working men focused the rest of the year, Henry VIII passed a law limiting which games they could play, and only during the 12 days of Christmas. Permitted games included cards, dice, bowls, tennis, and football. Archery, however, was allowed year-round, even on Christmas Day, because Henry wanted his army constantly trained. January 1st, New Year's Day, 8th day of Christmas. For much of medieval Europe, the New Year actually began on March 25th, a holdover from pagan traditions tied to spring. Christians redefined the date as the Feast of the Annunciation, marking the angel Gabriel's visit to Mary. Still, people also celebrated January 1st, borrowing from the Roman New Year. Rather than choosing, they simply celebrated twice. The Church rebranded the day as the Feast of the Circumcision of Jesus, held 8 days after his birth, following Jewish tradition. As countries shifted from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, they gradually moved New Year's Day to January 1st. Germany made the change in 1556, while Britain waited until 1752. In Tudor England, January 1st became the main gift-giving day. These gifts weren't sentimental. They were political. Presents flowed upward through society as knights, merchants, and nobles offered gifts to their superiors to secure favor. Courtiers spent lavishly trying to impress the monarch. Henry VIII did especially well, collecting gold cups, paintings, bags of coins, hunting dogs, and even exotic animals, all courtesy of those eager to stay in his good graces. One year, Henry even received a pet marmoset. January 2nd, the 9th day of Christmas, along with January 3rd and January 4th, were mostly open days meant for rest and recreation. Between the 1300s and 1700s, Northern Europe went through a mini ice age, and winters could be brutal. It often grew cold enough for the River Thames to freeze solid. When it did, people held frost fairs right on the ice, setting up markets, practicing archery, and even playing football on the frozen river. Medieval football looked a lot like modern rugby, chaotic, physical, and mostly rule-free. After several days of loose, carefree fun, everyone was ready for the biggest celebration of all. January 5th, 12th night, 12th day of Christmas. 12th night marked the final and most extravagant party of Christmastide. At royal courts, elaborate masks were staged, blending music, dance, singing, and acting with ornate costumes and scenery. Professional performers were hired, but courtiers often took part as well. Anne Boleyn famously impressed Henry VIII early in their relationship with her graceful dancing. All that movement worked up an appetite, leading straight into yet another lavish feast. In 1532, a temporary kitchen was built at Greenwich Palace to prepare 200 dishes for 12th night guests. Common people celebrated just as enthusiastically, hosting feasts, singing carols, dancing, playing games, and wearing masks and costumes. Wassailing was especially popular on this night. At the heart of the celebration was the 12th night cake, a massive fruit-filled brioche baked with a bean hidden in one half and a pea in the other. Men and women took slices from opposite sides. The man who found the bean became king of the bean, while the woman who discovered the pea was crowned queen. Their role was to lead the evening's festivities and keep the party alive well past midnight. January 6th, Epiphany. Epiphany celebrated the arrival of the three Magi, who brought gifts to the infant Christ. The Council of Tours declared the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany a sacred festive season, possibly for practical reasons. At the time, the Western Roman Empire followed the solar Julian calendar, while the eastern regions used a lunar one, creating a yearly gap of about 12 days. Declaring those days a holiday spared administrators a great deal of confusion. In the Middle Ages, Epiphany was marked with Mass followed by roast lamb. Epiphany tart, a giant jam-filled pastry shaped like a star, symbolized the guiding star that led the Magi to Bethlehem. The last embers of the Yule log were extinguished and saved for luck, believed to cure toothaches and protect the home. They were also used to light the next year's Yule log. Holly and ivy stayed up until Candlemas on February 2nd. Once Epiphany ended, the Christmas season was officially over, almost. Plough Monday. In England, the Monday after Epiphany was known as Plough Monday. It signaled the end of holiday revelry and the return to farm work in preparation for spring. The community plough was blessed, then young men dragged it through the village, collecting donations for the parish. Those who refused were jokingly threatened with having their doorstep ploughed up. King Edward VI eventually banned Plough Monday, but it still survives in a few English towns today. Are you tempted to bring any medieval traditions into your own holiday season? I'm planning to try a medieval mince pie recipe and spend some time at the archery range this December. I wish you and yours a joyful 12 days of Christmas, a happy holiday season, and a wonderful new year.